When checking a used vehicle that you're interested in, checking for leaks is very, very important. Some leaks can be very expensive to repair, others not so much. So we're going to show you where to look and what to look for when inspecting an engine for leaks. The modern engine is quite complicated and there's a lot of pipes and wires all over the place, but don't let that scare you. We're going to go through it systematically and show you what to look for. The best way to think of a modern engine is as building blocks, Lego bricks. There's several of them stacked on top of each other, and each one of those needs to seal against the one below and above it. So you're going to have the sump attaching to the block to the head to the valve cover, and that'll probably be dressed up with a bit of a plastic cover on the top, and that's just a garnish. Ideally, what you want to do is to get this plastic cover off, but not all of them come off that easy. Some of them require some tools. If it is one of those that just pops off, go ahead and get it out of the way. It is going to make life so much easier. On the front and the back of the engine, you're also going to want to check for leaks there. We'll show you where. One side is going to have a whole host of pulleys and belts. The other side is going to be connected to the gearbox. And of course, the engine may be sitting transversely, which means that it's going to be running from side to side rather than from back to front. As with our video on inspecting a vehicle before you buy it, we're going to use a flashlight. I've got a slightly stronger one here this time, and that's because we really want to do some serious inspection. What you're wanting to look at are the pipes and the tubes, and especially those that have little connectors on them. You're wanting to make sure that at these points there is no fluid present. The connectors are probably one of the greatest areas where you're going to find a leak. After that, we're going to start inspecting down at the bottom. When we check the engine, we do it from the top first and we work our way down. And this is because the underside of the car is going to be the dirtiest. And trying to trace a leak from the bottom up is kind of tricky. It's a lot easier from the top down. So you're going to have the most luck up top, and as you work your way down, it's going to get a little dirtier. We're going to check the engine, and we're not going to be too alarmed about the dipstick and the oil filler cap if we see a little bit of residual oil. This is going to happen. When you check the oil, you may drip some, or when you fill it up, you may spill a little bit. As long as that isn't super fresh oil, you shouldn't have any cause for concern. We're going to check the engine. We're going to check all the piping that comes off of it. Once again, check around those connectors and check the lowest point of that pipe. If you see that a pipe bends, you want to find the lowest point. Gravity is going to pull all that fluid down, and it's probably going to end up dripping from the bottom. You're also going to want to check the radiator and the cooling system. The radiator sits here in the front, in the nose. It's usually connected to the washer bottles. Once again, check all the connectors and beware that some of the radiators will have pipes down at the bottom. That we're going to have to try and get in from the underside to be able to check properly. Here we see the pulleys and the belts on the front of the engine, and we're wanting to check that there's no fluid leaking down, especially down there at the bottom. If one of these shafts happens to have a leaky seal, that's a rather costly repair. This one looks nice and bone dry, and it should. It's a rather new vehicle. While we're here, we're going to be checking those joints. We're going to have the block, and the block is going to attach to the head, and that block is also going to attach to the sump. So we want to check around the perimeter, and we just want to make sure that there are no leaks present. Then, of course, there's the underside. Now, many new cars are going to have trays underneath here and deflectors that are going to make it kind of hard to spot leaks, but you're going to want to see if there is anything seeping out of those gaps. For cars that don't have it, have a field time. You're going to need to get on your back, so don't wear your smartest clothes to the dealership, or at least when you're doing your leak inspection, dress a little tatty. May even save you some money. While we are under the car, we're not only going to check for engine leaks, we're also going to check some of the suspension. So we're going to take a look at things like, well, CV boots. And we're going to want to see that there's nothing leaking from the CV boot and that it isn't torn. Right, so it seems we've checked everything, isn't it? We haven't checked the ground. So what we're going to do is we're going to step back and we're going to inspect underneath the car to see if there are any leaks here. An old leak or an old puddle of oil may be from the previous vehicle, so don't be too alarmed. Ideally, what you want to do is you want to move the vehicle before you start your inspection. Move it to a clear spot where there's no oil on the ground. While you're going through your inspection, if there does happen to be a leak present, it'll drip on the ground and it'll alert you to it. Then what you want to do is you want to take the vehicle for a drive. So this is very much a two-part inspection. Once you've taken the vehicle for the drive, the oil and the fluids are going to circulate, and this may present a leak. What sometimes happens is they may be trying to hide an issue and they've cleaned it off quite well so that you don't notice it when it's standing. But once these fluids have circulated, it starts leaking again. So when you bring it back from that test drive, go and park it in a nice clean spot and go and inspect it again. See if there's any fresh residue or fresh oil. Now, be warned that the aircon compressor is going to create a little bit of condensation, and that'll usually start dripping round about where the driver sits. So if you see a clear liquid on the floor, it's not the end of the world. You're looking for blue, green, or of course, oily substances.